Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're here with our next guest this morning, and he is our Florida National Committeeman, Peter Feaman. And I've known Peter for 10 years, and he's always a dragon slayer for the Republican Party, and we need some dragons to be slayed. And right now, Peter is running to be our chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, because as people know, the current chairman, Christian Ziegler, he's embroiled in a sexcapade case and has not resigned. So I know that we're going to be coming back together to vote in a new chairman, and that is why Peter's running. But Peter, welcome to the show first. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Veronica. Nice to be back on your show. It's been a while. What's it been? A year? Couple of years?
Well, you like to golf, so I was always trying to hunt you down on a golf course. But I know you've been working.
Well, if things go the way I hope they go, my golf days are going to be very limited going forward. But that's okay. That's okay.
Well, that's good. We'll let President Biden know that. But on a serious note, tell people about your background, Peter, because I have your political resume here, and you've done some amazing things for the party, and you are a trial attorney. So tell us about Peter.
Well, I went to the University of Miami Law School and got my law degree there, originally from up north. But after I got to Florida, I never went back. So I've been living in Florida since 1975, and I love it. I do admit that I'm an attorney, but I like to say that I'm a recovering attorney. So that's a good thing. And I've been a trial attorney, not the kind of trial attorney that Democrats are, but corporate trial attorney, trust and probate trial attorney, that sort of thing. And then I've always been about service. And so I got involved with the Republican Party first, actually, in 1982, where I worked for a congressman who ran for governor. And then been involved in the Republican Party of Florida now for, believe it or not, 20 years. I've been on the Republican Party of Florida Executive Committee and have been helping run the Republican Party since that time. I was blessed to be elected Florida's National Committeeman in 2012, ran again in 2016 and won, ran again in 2020 and won. So I'm finishing up my third term. And back in November, Veronica, I'm looking back and where Florida is now and where it was when I first became National Committeeman, and I said, you know what? I think I've done about everything I could do to help the party, so I don't think I'm going to run for a fourth term. And then something happened that I never expected. Christian Ziegler became front page news.
All over the world.
And
so where were you when that happened? That's when that story broke. How did you hear about it, Peter?
I read it in the online, one of the online publications, and I about fell out of my chair. I said, "You got to be kidding," to myself. And then Christian did call me on Thursday, because it came out on a Wednesday. I remember that, and he said, "Listen, I haven't committed a crime. I have not done anything like that, and so I'm going to stick it out." And at that point, like I think we all thought, I just thought it was a Democrat hit job.
I did too. And
so, yeah. And so I said, "Yeah, hang in there. You know, these hit pieces, they're not true. So just hang in there." Well, as the story developed, much to our surprise, I think, and disappointment, things started to look not good for the party. Not good. And so what happened was people started to call for his resignation and whatnot. And now, unfortunately, here we are. And we have a special meeting on January 8th to remove him. And then we'll go from there. So that's kind of, but when all that broke, I thought to myself, you know what, after 20 years of service, this is not the right time to walk away from the party. To walk away from the party and the state that I love And so I made a decision that if there's a vacancy for the chairman's job, I am going to run for it because this is experience, proven leadership. It's necessary at this time, and I intend to, if I'm elected, restore the good name and luster of the party, and to raise money like crazy. That's probably the most important thing. And why is that? Well, there's the obvious reasons, support our candidate, but most importantly is our local counties. Our local county Republican executive committees and our county parties need money, and especially the smaller one, the rural counties. And so by raising a lot of money from the party, we can then come and help the local parties and elect Republicans from the top down. And so that's really where the emphasis has to be. Get that money to the local parties down into the local communities, and keep the Republican Party great, or, as I'd like to say, make the Republican Party of Florida great again.
So
you know, Peter, I really want to thank you for stepping up, because true leaders step in and lead when it's needed. And a lot of people, particularly in RPOF, because the turnover has been so high, they seem to forget that we've been through this before. And we had strong leaders step up to restore the party, back in when was that, 2010 timeframe?
2010, that's right, John. You're right.
We were basically bankrupt going into an election, and it was all because of Jim Greer, and we voted, we started a movement to get, recall him, basically get rid of him, and we did that. And it took a lot of work by a lot of people to get the party restored and ready for a presidential election cycle again. And we're in the same position again.
So Peter, I have a question though. Why do you think Christian Ziegler has not stepped down? The governor has called for him to step down. They've docked his pay. The story was out there again on Christmas Day on the Daily Mail, which the whole world looks at. Why has he not stepped down? Because right now this is impacting the party.
Veronica, I can't speak for Christian. I can only pray for him and his family and his 3 beautiful children. That's really all we can do, and just ask that somehow the right thing happens. Okay. But I don't want to speak for him either. I haven't spoken to him in a while, and so I don't know where he's at, where his head's at, and all of that. But I do know, unfortunately, that we have to move forward as a party. And what's best for the party is that we move forward without him at this time, unfortunately.
Well, I agree with that. Because all roads to the White House come through Florida. So we've got to be strong. And, that's my next question to you is this election we think is going to happen January 8th. And an article came out yesterday saying petition claims Evan Power, who's our vice chair, is rigging the Florida GOP chairman election. And people are calling for a fair voting date. So tell me why January 8th to the layman out there that doesn't understand what's going on. Why is this a bad thing when you all are coming together, I guess, for your normal quarterly in February?
Right. Well, it's actually, we're coming together in February for our annual meeting, which we have every year in February in Orlando, which is a more of a central location. They initially called a special meeting for January 8th to remove Christian. I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with a special meeting for that. But then what they did is they kind of slipped in, if you will, that they said, and oh, by the way, we're going to create a vacancy, and then at that very same meeting, we're going to fill that vacancy. Now, you don't have to be a lawyer to look at that and go, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. You're going to create a vacancy and then fill it. And so I think that's what the folks are upset about. I don't think they're upset about the fact that there's a special meeting in January to consider removing our chairman. Okay, that's completely legitimate. But then if that would happen, and of course there's no certainty that would happen, if that would happen, to then say, and okay, since we're all in Tallahassee, we're going to have an election too, that doesn't pass the straight face test, as they say. And I think that's why folks are upset, because A, you have the potential to disenfranchise our voters, because the meeting's on a Monday afternoon in Tallahassee. I know for a fact people I've spoken to from Lee County, Collier County, Monroe County, they can't get up there on a Monday afternoon. Charlotte County.
And you can't Zoom in to vote, Peter? You can't make it fair and square?
We have no
proxy voting.
Yeah, we have no provision. We have no provision in our rules or bylaws for Zoom or proxy voting, because we want to make sure that we have election integrity. And we don't not want any possibility of this being some type of irregularities going on. So we still demand that people vote in person. And I don't have a problem with that.
I don't, Peter, why are they not following the precedent that happened with Jim Greer? I mean, he was basically drummed out of office, and then a vacancy declared, and then at the next annual meeting we had a vote, and there were a lot of people wanting to run for chairman, so that was a pretty good group of folks out there and changing the leadership. And I don't understand, where does the executive board get the authority to elect a new chairman? I didn't think that was in their purview.
Well, I think the headline to that story says it all. It's rigged.
Well, it's suspect because the people are saying it's in Tallahassee. We've never had an election in Tallahassee before. It's on a weekday. We've never had an election on a weekday because people work. Our folks, our Republican
Party
volunteers. In Florida is made up of regular grassroots folks. And so a Monday election on right after a holiday period, all the way in Tallahassee, people just say, wait a minute, I want to vote for a new chairman, but I can't make that meeting. And we have already scheduled, only a month later, our annual meeting in February in Orlando, so why not just have it then? And then they said, well, we need to raise money. And we can't wait.
well, they can't raise money during the session anyways, right? Which starts in January. I mean, all of our fundraising basically comes to a stop. Particularly with some of the
legislature can't raise money, but the chairman or the vice chairman can raise money, and of which I have been also working the phones to raise money, and I'm prepared to raise a significant amount of money as soon as I'm elected chair. And I've had major donors tell me, as soon as you're elected chair, Pete, we will immediately help you with significant financial contributions. And if we have a 30-day temporary shortfall, well, we did that at the RNC. After the debacle with Romney in 2012, we had a slight shortfall, and we borrowed money for a couple of months and then immediately went to work, raised money, got it paid back, and by the end of the year we had tens of millions on hand. So this is not unprecedented. It's not unusual, and we'll get through it. In that year that we removed Jim Greer, we ended up electing Rick Scott as our governor. We ended up electing Marco Rubio as our senator. We moved forward and we never looked back. And with the right leadership in place, we can do the same thing this time around.
I agree. And Peter, you're one of the most articulate Republican spokespeople in the state of Florida. And I sincerely mean that. I've heard you for many, many years speak contemporaneously, and you are so far ahead of Evan in doing that. And the other aspect that you bring is the national leadership aspect. If we get a new chairman, if Evan does win for chairman, we're also looking at a new national committee man and a new national committee woman. We're going to be sending 3 people to the RNC in an election year with 0 experience at the national level. And I really think we're hurting ourselves badly doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point, John, because this is not just an election for the state of Florida. When I go to RNC meetings, Florida has become a model for the whole country. And literally the entire nation is looking at Florida and saying, okay, who will you send us? Because you are our leader. Your state party leads the way. And so next week, you're going to see a ton of endorsements of true conservatives, RNC members who will be endorsing me for my race, because this truly is more than a state election. This is a national election for which I believe we need somebody who's been on the national scene for a number of years, like I have. And so stay tuned.
Well, on that note,
I'd always
Peter,
hope that you would be the leader, step up to the RNC chairmanship job. But I'll take the Florida chairmanship now for you.
I wanted to mention one of your big endorsements on all your social media is Harmeet Dillon, and she's an attorney, and we all know her as a Republican Party California National Committee woman who took on Ronna McDaniel, and I was hoping she was going to win, because why we have this other person in there who's lost so many races. What a great endorsement, because I love this National Committee woman.
Yeah, Harmeet's terrific, and I worked as hard as I could to get her elected, but we couldn't overcome the establishment at the RNC, but we're not giving up on that either. But I first met Harmeet at the convention in Cleveland in 2016. She and I both served on the Rules Committee there, and we fought side by side against the Never Trumpers to keep them and the Cruz folks, I might add, from disrupting that convention. They tried to, but we beat them back, and Harmeet was right there leading the way, and I was right by her side. So we've been allies and political companions ever since.
So how are you working to win this now, Peter? Because, to me, it's bigger than Florida, as you said. This is about taking back the White House in 2024, and we've got to have Florida leading the way to do this. So how are you working to win this chairmanship?
I'm personally calling as many members of the voting committee that I can, including state representatives and state senators, just to let them know of my track record, and that I want to bring to the party a concept that we haven't seen lately in our leaders, and that's called servant leadership. That you're leading by serving and serving by leading, instead of building a resume, instead of using it as a stepping stone, instead of wanting to be elected to some other political public office. I'm trying to convince people that I'm doing it because A, I love our country, B, I love our state, C, I love our party. And the Republican Party of Florida is the best vehicle that I know to make Florida great again and keep Florida great again. And when Florida prospers, the country prospers. And that's what we need right now.
So true. So true.
Peter, you believe it or not, Peter, what just came to my mind, what I was going to ask you next question is you're a model for servant leaders. And you just took the words right out of my mouth. And you truly are the model of a servant leader in what we need today.
Well, thank you, John. And, there's been so much turnover on our committee, John, as you know, and Veronica, that people, I have to reintroduce myself to people and let them know, hey, I've been in this for 20 years. I've been the National Committeeman for 12 years. And the reason I've done it is because of the love in my heart for the folks and for the Republican Party. And now is the time to step up with somebody who's been around for 20 years, who can drive this car, this Republican Party car, out of the ditch that it's been in, get behind the wheel, and lead the caravan down the road to continued prosperity and freedom. And I'm prepared to drive that car and fill the trunk full of cash with full of donations, so that we can refund our party and lead the caravan, lead the nation into the next election, and we will.
And Peter, on that, I want to comment on the turnover. You may remember a few years ago, there was a big move to have term limits on state committee men and women and chairmen, and I fought against that because, and I'm trying to remember Peggy, I'm having a brain lock here.
Peggy Simone,
former state. Peggy Simone, yeah, she got up very articulate about why we needed institutional memory. The turnover was already so high that we were lacking institutional memory, and I fear that's where we've come, is that the turnover, despite the fact that we don't have term limits, the institutional turnover on our chairmen and committee men and committee women is so high that we've forgotten how to operate as a party.
Yes, that's correct. And so what we need is senior leadership with the energy and mind of a 40-year-old, and that's me. Okay. Senior leadership, because I've got 5 kids and 10 grandkids, and that'll keep you young. That's for sure.
So, Peter, explain how once Christian is ousted, how will the voting? Who's voting for the chairman?
So we have our executive committee, which is made up of state committee man, state committee woman, and a county chairman from each county. So that's 3 times 67. So if you do the math right, what's that? 201 people. And then we have 10 appointees from the House, from the governor, I mean. And then we have 10 House members, 10 Senate members, and then all of our Republican elected congressmen and our Florida cabinet and our 2 senators. Now, the question is, you have to be present in order to vote. So how many of those people will actually show? And that goes back to the point we made earlier, Veronica, that by having a meeting in Tallahassee on a Monday, a lot of the people who are eligible to vote simply won't be able to make it. Okay. And that's why I think other people are accept. Now, for me, I'll tell you, if they have the vote on January 8th, I'm good with that. If they have it in February, an annual meeting, I'm good with that, whatever the body decides. But apparently we're going to get there on January 8th. We'll have the vote to remove. And if it's successful, then they're going to vote again to see if we're going to have an election. And then if they vote to have an election, then we're going to have an election right then, which is just kind of funky to me. It's just kind of weird.
So Peter, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Is the meeting on the 8th, is that, I thought that was just the executive committee, the 40 members of the executive committee that were trying to do this. This is a general meeting, they called it, a special meeting?
It's a general meeting. They have called a general meeting of the entire body.
I didn't think they had time. I thought you had to do 30 notice or something to do one of those.
15 days. And
15
so
days,
when
okay.
we had our special meeting of the executive board in Orlando, the Sunday before Christmas, they called the meeting for January 8th. They had 30 people sign a petition at that meeting and called the meeting for January 8th. But the whole thing was already, set up.
Yeah. Well, there's a good chance they won't have a quorum either, and that's the other side of that. Is
there is.
They don't have a quorum.
That's correct. That's correct. There's a chance we may not have a quorum. So the whole thing is weird. That's all I can say. But hey, if we're gonna have the election on January 8th, I'm gonna run for it, and I'm gonna fight within the system that I've been given, right or wrong.
So I wanted you to tell us why taking out President Biden is so important. I honestly feel, Peter, and I thought this last time, this is the most important election ever. And now that we've been under this nightmare with our open borders, we've had record-setting days of 15,000 illegals coming through. It's a mess in the Ukraine. It's a mess with China. Is this not the most important election of our time? And you've been in politics a long time.
Veronica, I used to say that we're fighting for the heart and soul of America. I don't say that anymore. What I say now is we are fighting for the very survival of our republic called the United States of America. Because if we do not take control of the White House and take back Congress, we will lose our republic. And we know now that's not an overstatement. Why? Well, just look at our southern border. That is an invasion, and our leaders are doing nothing. At least the governor of Texas is trying to do something, setting up their own. If we continue to do nothing, maybe we need to raise the citizens' militia to stop the invasion on the southern border. It's that serious. And then that's not the only thing. Now they're trying to keep Mr. Trump off the ballot in Colorado and now Maine. Okay, they always accuse us of what they themselves do. And so they say, oh, Trump will end our democracy. No, you're the ones that are ending democracy when you unilaterally and arbitrarily remove your number one opponent from a ballot. That's the end of democracy. And so, yes, we are fighting for the survival of our republic, or as I like to say, this 250-year-old grand experiment in freedom that the world has never seen. We must not let it come to an end on our watch, because if America's light grows dim, the world gets to be a dark place. You mentioned Ukraine. You mentioned Israel. Yes, when America's light of leadership is dim, the world gets dark. Now is the time.
Wow.
I know we need to be
powerful.
the Reagan's shining city on a hill. You know, that's been one of my favorite quotes for a long time, and that's what America is to the world.
That's right. We've been a beacon of hope and freedom, but through managed immigration, we let people come in, not unbridled immigration. As I wrote in my book, Europe as we know it will be gone in 25 years because of their unbridled immigration policies. And so when we see what's happening on our southern border, millions of people, we can't survive. We can't survive like this. And so now is the hour. Everybody must get out and work for our Republican candidates this November. Everybody must get out and vote. Phone calls, voter registration, get out the vote, everything we can think of. The hour is upon us to save the country. And I do not overstate the case.
Well, very powerful. And so on a final note, Peter, what do you want to tell these people that maybe have already committed to Evan Power, and why they should vote for you?
I suspect that they committed possibly because he had already declared for National Committeeman, not chairman. And they probably said, okay, well, I guess we'll just let our commitment slide over. They probably didn't know that I was running or going to run. And so now they have an opportunity to take a second look. It's sort of like college recruiting. There are great athletes that commit to a college or university, but then they get more information. They're allowed to reconsider their decision. And then on signing day, they say, no, I'm actually going to go to Georgia instead of Alabama, something like that. And our national signing day, if you use the college football analogy, may be January 8th. And you can get more information about me. And then it's a secret ballot, and you can vote what you think is in the best interest of Florida and the best interest of the country. You can visit my Facebook page, my Twitter page, my Instagram page. You can get more information on my Facebook page. There's a podcast that you can watch and hear and get more information. And then on January 8th, if we have an election on that day, let's make Florida great again.
Well, we wish you well, Peter, and good luck. And we'll have you back to see, how it played out.
I would love to be back. I love the folks in the Panhandle. So I bought a house in North Florida. Didn't quite get to the Panhandle, but I got to Green Cove Springs.
Oh, that's close. Jacksonville's good enough. Yeah,
You're getting closer. Well, we wish you well.
Right.
It's been a pleasure having Peter Feaman. He's our Florida National Committee man. He has thrown his hat in the ring, running for to be our next chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. And we wish you well. Happy New Year, Peter.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back.